Alright, so in this video I'm going to be doing a deck profile of my Goat Control deck. So Goat Control is the format from the summer of, I believe, 2004. And, I mean, it's very widely regarded as one of the best formats for Yu-Gi-Oh! And after playing the format, I would agree. It's extremely fun to play. I definitely prefer this over current Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's a nice change of pace. So I'm going to be doing a deck profile of just showing you guys what I'm playing. This is fairly standard for a Goat Control deck, though I have a few changes. There isn't too much room for innovation with this format because it's been played for so long. So one BLS. BLS is still ridiculous. You can play Chaos Sorcerer, but it's not worth it because there aren't enough good light monsters to support both of them. It's tough enough getting enough lights just for BLS, but this still wins games. The one thing to keep in mind is you don't want to summon this unless you're going for game, because leaving it on the field is dangerous. Your opponent can steal it. 2 Magician of Faith. You can play 3, but I feel like a lot of times I'll just get banished from the Woman of Crossout, and I never really wanted to play 3. 2 is pretty standard. I'm going through all my lights first, by the way. 1 Air Knight Parshath. So when you get this effect off, it's extremely good. It's one of the few tribute monsters that's actually worth it in this format. And it's also a light, which is nice. Basically, usually how you want to summon this is you want to try to special summon it with Call the Haunted or Premature Burial. That's ideal. And you get into your grave by pitching it. There's lots of ways in this format where you have to discard. 1 DD Warrior Lady. This is one of the best removal cards, and it happens to be a light. If it doesn't get its effect off, it'll go to the grave. And then 1 Magical Merchant. I basically wanted a light, and this is okay because it replaces itself. And all of the spell and trap cards are pretty good. There's some pretty ridiculous ones, so it's a decent card. It basically just replaces itself and gets a light in your grave. So now for the darks. 1 Sangan. You can only play 1. This is a really good card. It searches for everything. Sinister Serpent is honestly the most common thing that you can search for, but it also searches for like Tsukiyomi, Magician of Faith, DD Warrior Lady, or like a Morphing Jar. 1 Breaker. Really good spell trap removal for this format. It's an easy +1, and it's a dark. It works very well. 2 Tsukiyomi. You can play 3, but it's kind of cloggy. This works really well with Thousand Eyes Restrict. Also, you steal your opponent's monsters, you can turn them face down and keep them off of Snatch Steal. And this is really abusable with flip effect monsters, which you're running a lot of. 2 Ixarian Universe. This is actually insanely good in this format. So that really high attack and defense is super relevant. You can set this in defense and just wall up, and it's really tough for your opponent to get over it. Or you can put it in attack mode and just attack over things, and this can get over almost anything. Also, the piercing is extremely relevant, mainly to just pierce over scapegoat tokens, and it can put a lot of pressure, because life points are a valuable resource in this format. And then my last dark is just 1 Jinzo. Jinzo's alright. It still puts pressure on, because, I mean, there's no hand traps in this format, so the only thing that your opponent can really do is, like, they can book it, or they can just wall up with scapegoats. But it's still a pretty good boss monster, and you can just easily summon it the same way as you would summon the Air Knight Parshath. And then for the non-dark and light monsters, 1 Sinister Serpent, which is ridiculously good. This free discard fodder is super good in this format. This is also free Metamorphosis fodder, so you can just normal summon this, tribute out for Thousand Eyes Restrict, and then get it back to your hand next standby phase. 1 Tribe Infecting Virus. This is probably the best monster removal. I mean, you can just clear out all their goat tokens with this, and then attack for 16. And it's an out of anything. So, 1 Morphing Jar. Morphing Jar is kind of crazy. If you set a lot of cards, you can just gain a lot of pluses off of this. It can be bad if you have more cards in your hand, but obviously you just have to play smart and don't let yourself get morphing jarred by your own morphing jar. One Exiled Force. I like this. It's just simple monster removal. It's good for dealing with set monsters without flipping them up. For the spells, there's a bunch of limited spells that you always play. So first of all, there's what they call the Trinity: Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity, and Delinquent Duo. These are arguably the 3 best cards in the format, and you just try to abuse these a lot. Magician of Faith to reuse these all is pretty good. These 2 cards are a big reason why Sinister Serpent is so good, and why you can and why you can discard tribute monsters so easily. And then Pot of Greed is obvious. And then the other limited, you have Snatch Steal and Premature Burial. Really good cards. These are 2 of the best cards for big offensive plays. And then your spell and trap removal, you got Heavy Storm and MST, both limited at this format, which is kind of weird in retrospect. Obviously Heavy Storm is better, but MST is still really good. So yeah, those are pretty self-explanatory. And then the rest of the cards are not limited. So I'm playing 2 Scapegoats and 2 Metamorphosis. I feel like more than 2 and 2 kind of clogs. But Scapegoats are pretty useful, so they're nice to have for lots of different reasons. Just chump blockers, also Thousand Eyes Restrict with Metamorphosis. And I mean, this is mainly just to get Thousand Eyes Restrict off of the tokens and Sinister Serpent or a flip effect monster that you've used the flip effect of. You can also like steal your opponent's monster and then Metamorphosis it into something else. 2 Noblemen of Crossout. Set monsters are a huge part of this format. You can banish flip monsters. Yeah, you definitely want to play this card. 2 Book of Moon. 2 is enough, I think. Book of Moon is just as flexible for this format as it is now. It's really good. You have the added benefit of being able to reuse flip effect monsters with this, but it's also good for stopping attacks or turning your opponent's monsters to defense mode and making them weaker or whatever, you know. Then I'm teching in 1 enemy controller. I like the flexibility of this. Switching monsters battle positions can be handy, and it's also nice to sometimes tribute off monsters to steal your opponent's monsters. And for the traps, there's a bunch of limited ones again. Ring of Destruction, Mirror Force, Torrential Tribute, and Call the Haunted are all limited. There's not really any reason not to play these. These are your 3 main defensive traps, and they can all create big swings. These 2 are obviously big swing momentum cards. And then this one is really big for life points. You can burn them for game with that. And Call the Haunted is basically Premature Burial, except for it's a little bit slower. And then to finish out the main deck, I'm playing 3 Trap Dust Shoot. This card is ridiculous in GOAT format. People didn't know about it back then, but with retrospect, it's pretty obvious that this card is stupidly good. GOAT format hands are bigger than hands are nowadays. You tend to have a lot of cards stuck in your hand, so this is even better. And this is really good, in particular for shuffling in Sinister Serpents. And hand knowledge is really big in Yu-Gi-Oh! If you know all your opponent's cards, you can play around them. It's true in any format. So for the extra deck, there is no limit. So first of all, I have 4 GOAT tokens, just handy to have. And then I am playing 3 copies of Thousand Eyes Restrict. This is the only one you use most of the time. So you definitely want to play the maximum of 3 copies. It's a really, really powerful card in this format. It's one of the defining cards. For level 3s, 1 Dragoness the Wicked and 1 Flame Ghost. So this has more attack. This one's a dark. That's basically it. Sometimes you will want to like tribute off a Sandgam to get the search right away. I actually have done that once, I think, so it's somewhat relevant. And then Dark Flare Dragon and Carbanola Warrior. You don't really need both of these. If you only played one, I would play Dark Fire Dragon probably. I don't think I've ever summoned either of them. And then 2 Dark Balter the Terribles, 1 Reaper the Nightmare, 1 Fiend Skull Dragon, and 1 Guiltia the D-Knight. So, Balter's the best one. These 2 have decent effects, and then you play this one because it's a light. These 2 are darks. That's basically it. I've never summoned any of them. The only way really is with an Air Knight Parshath, and a lot of times you just want the Parshath. It can be worth it to summon like a Balter off of that in certain situations. 6s, you got double Ryu Senshi, Jama King, Dark Blade, and then Dark Flare Knight. So Ryu Senshi is the best one. Ojama King is a light. Dark Blade is a dark, and this one's cool. That's the only reason it's in there. I don't think I've ever summoned any of those. You can go off of a Jinzo to go into one of those. One Last Warrior of Another Planet. I don't play any level 7s, but if I stole one of my opponent's 7s, maybe I could summon this. It actually has a good effect, but it's really hard to summon. So I've never summoned either of the 6s or 7s. And then for 8s, I'm playing Gatling Dragon and an Exceed Dragon Cannon. So this is actually needed. I have summoned this before off of you tribute a BLS to Metamorphosis into this, and it is sometimes worth it. I've done it. This one isn't here because it's cool. You don't actually summon this. So this is one of the few that I think is important. And then I'm playing a Black Skull Dragon and a Master of Oz because they're cool. No other reason. The only ones you actually really need are, you need 3 of this. You probably need both of these. You probably need this. I'd say you need 1 Dark Balter and probably 1 Ryu Senshi and then 1 Gatling Dragon. That's probably the minimum. I would definitely play all of these, but you can play as much as you want in there. And then for the side deck, you do not really side in this format just because everybody's playing Goat, and your main deck is tailor-made to beat Goat. So you only really side deck if your opponent is playing something besides a Goat deck. So I'm siding 2 Rhoda, this plus a Mystic Swordsman level 2. So this is mainly for things that play a lot of flip monsters, because this is a really good out to flip monsters, and this can also search for Exiled Force, which is a pretty good out to flip monsters, and you can also search DD Warrior Lady. Double Royal Decree, anything that's super trap heavy. I played against one variant, but played like all of the discard traps. Rikeki Break and Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, I believe, are both in this format. So I wanted this against them because they just did so many traps in that build. Most Goat builds don't run enough traps that you would want that. 2 Dust Tornado, if you need another MST, again, for trap heavy stuff. 3 Solemn Judgment. So in Goat Mirrors, life points are way too important of a resource to use this. But if you're playing against Empty Jar or Last Turn decks, you want as many of this as you can, because they don't try to reduce your life points to 0. They try to deck you out or win by activating Last Turn. So you want to have this to be able to stop the win condition. Double Royal Oppression. You can play 3 of this, but it's not really that good in Goat Mirrors. Just this is sided for anything that wants a special summon for whatever reason. And then 2 Giant Grenade. You can play 3 of this also, but it's really not that good in the Goat Mirror. So it's in the side if you need it for something. The cards that I would most heavily recommend siding are Triple Solemn Judgment. I think that's pretty important. And Royal Decree is pretty handy to have also. But I don't really use the side deck unless I'm playing something that's not a mirror match. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the deck profile. If you did, be sure to check out some other stuff.